Let's talk about what we do when we get a new batch of coffee from Brazil. We use a sample roaster, as you can see here, and the samples that come from our importer are small in size, which allows us to use this smaller sample roaster. We put the raw beans on the top of the roaster, flatten them down, turn the machine on here with the green light, and then once we're ready, we'll click the button and turn the machine on. And what that does is it warms it up so we can get started. Once the red light starts to blink, then we know that the roaster is ready. What we'll do then is we'll take the beans that are at the top and we'll rotate that disc. As soon as we rotate that disc, the beans will fall inside the roaster and it'll start that roasting process. And in about 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be ready to go. Here you can see that the coffee is roasting and we're just keeping an eye on things. I'm checking for temperature. It's pretty hot. And you can see the roasted coffee over here spinning around, getting nice and toasty. And also what you'll notice here in the next shot is the chaff, or this is the skin of the coffee bean that's coming out. Once the coffee is finished roasting, the light will turn blue. This indicates that it is now in cool down mode, which will allow us to take that chaff and throw it out. If you notice here, I'll open it up and you can take a look. The chaff, like I mentioned, is the dry skin of the coffee bean. It's not something that we use and we'll throw it away. It's also highly flammable, so we'll put it in our compost bin to help recycle that. We'll put that canister right back inside, and then with another button, we'll be able to draw all of those roasted coffees back into that glass canister. So it's as simple as just pushing the button, allowing the vacuum inside the roaster to draw out every single coffee bean into the glass jar, and then we're ready to start tasting. So you can see over here, everything's coming out. I'm making sure every little bean is out. I'll take out the glass jar, and we've got some freshly roasted coffee. Every sample that we get has its own unique identification number, which we indicate on the bottom of every cup that we roast. This helps us track which coffee sample we like, which coffee sample we don't enjoy. Now, because it's freshly roasted, we'll typically wait 1 day, and then we'll do a tasting, and that's what we're going to learn next. Let's take a look. In our industry, the tasting part of this process is called a cupping. Today, we're going to cup 2 samples that we received from our importer, and the third one is actually our current Vista Alegre, which is our control. So we have something to compare to. Now, it's a blind cupping, so I don't know which coffee is which helps prevent any bias. The first step is to smell the coffee in its dry form. We refer to this as the fragrance. You can see I stand next to the coffees, I stick my nose deep in there and take a nice whiff. I'm mentally keeping track of things that I'm smelling, if it's sweetness, if it's moldy, if it smells like coffee, all the little nuanced notes that I want to smell. The second step is when we pour the hot water into each of the samples. The water is boiled to 203 degrees temperature. It's allowed to cool down for 2 minutes, and then we pour into each of the individual cups, and then we set a timer for 5 minutes to allow the coffee to brew inside the cup. Once the coffee has been filled up and starts to brew, you can see over here it starts to form a crust up at the top. Those are the coffee grounds that are floating to the top, and the water down below is absorbing all of the flavors from that coffee that we're going to taste later on. Now, this third step that I'm going to be performing is called the aroma. It's when the coffee has come in contact with the water. Same concept, stick your nose as close as you can, do not want to touch it. But again, I'm smelling all the nuances, and you'll smell things like cinnamon and spices and sweets. Once that is finished, then we're going to clean up that top layer. That top layer contains a lot of fatty acids, and it would ruin the taste perceptors on your tongue, so we want to remove them. And we use a technique with 2 spoons. And the process is every cup has its own rinsing cup. We rinse first, then we scoop out the coffee grounds like you see me here doing, and then we rinse one more time. And we do this so that we are not incorporating any other flavors to the other beans. We want to make sure everything is kept separate so we can make an accurate comparison of which coffee that we enjoy. Here's a shot of the coffee with the grounds removed. You can see it looks just like a typical cup of coffee. The water and the coffee have cooled down to about 150 degrees, which allows me to start tasting the coffee. I use a special tasting spoon. You could use a tablespoon at home. And the key here is to slurp it. The slurping allows the air to come into contact with the coffee and all those flavor receptors you have on your tongue and in your nose to taste it. In addition, you can see it looks like I'm almost chewing the coffee. Again, I'm agitating it, and I'm looking for things like the body, the aftertaste, the acidity level, and obviously how sweet it is, and trying to make a mental note of which coffee I like. And that's essentially the process, from start to finish. And once the coffee is picked, we'll go ahead and roast it, and then we'll start packing those beans and get them ordered to you as soon as we can. Thanks.